This is episode 4 of Right or Wrong. Let's get into it. This episode is about Mallory Beach and the boat crash that killed her and left her friends scarred. Right or Wrong is a podcast based on actual events of terrible, terrible things that happen to people who do not take the correct safety precautions, and the outcomes and worst case scenarios of people who do not. In our modern world, safety is not taken as seriously it needs to be, and this podcast is to show that it needs a change. Welcome. This case is one of the many Murdaugh murders that does have a documentary on Netflix that is really good, and you should probably watch it. But we're gonna focus on Mallory Beach and the boat crash that left her friend scarred and the fateful death of her and the tragedies behind all of that, considering that she was out past her curfew, was way too late, and was left alone with no support. In February 2019, a fatal boat crash took the life of Mallory Beach, with her friend Paul Murdaugh allegedly drunken crashed his family's boat in 2021. After Paul was murdered, investigators began to take a closer look at the Murdaugh family. At the time of her death in a fatal boat crash accident in 2019, Mallory Beach was just a 19-year-old girl. She had graduated Wade Hampton High School and worked at a clothing boutique in Beaufort, South Carolina. Her family says that she had dreams of becoming an interior designer. Everyone loved her. Mallory Beach was a popular, quote, and everybody loved her, end quote. Mallory's aunt Lynn Revis told, quote, 48 Hours, end quote, she had many friends and had a boyfriend, Anthony Cook. Paul Murdaugh, pictured second to the right, which I'll put the photo on, was friends with Mallory and Anthony. He is pictured with his brother Buster, mother Maggie, and father Alex Murdaugh, who was a prominent local attorney. In February of 2019, Paul was 19 years old. On February 23, 2019, Paul and Anthony planned to spend Saturday night at a house party at Oyster Roast on Pocky Island with her friends, Anthony's cousin Connor Cook and Connor's girlfriend Miley Altman. They decided to meet first at Murdaugh Island, a river properly owned by the family of their friend Paul Murdaugh. Since Paul and his then-girlfriend Morgan Dottie were also going to the party, the friends agreed they would take Paul's family boat there. Investigators say on February 22nd, 2019, Paul, Connor, Anthony, Mallory, Morgan, and Miley were all underage drinking alcohol. There are some of the beverages investigators later found in a cooler on the Murdaugh boat that was kicked off the boat, floating. Very bad. Earlier that day, surveillance camera captured Paul Murdaugh purchasing alcohol at a local convenience store. He used the ID of his older brother Buster. In this still image taken from the security camera photo, Paul Murdaugh appears to be celebrating what he was able to successfully purchase alcohol. This is Mitchell DeWitt, the editor of Hampton County Guardian, who has discovered the story. Seconds later, Paul can be seen loading the cooler in the boat. Investigators believe that around 6:30 p.m., Anthony, Mallory, Paul, and his girlfriend Morgan, and another couple, Connor and Miley, had assembled at the Murdaugh family river house. They said the group left by the boat around 7 p.m. In her interview with investigators, Miley says they arrived at the house party where they spent several hours. At around midnight, she said she left the party with Paul, Morgan, Anthony, Mallory, and Connor, meaning that they were supposed to be home much before that and stayed to have fun. When they got back on the boat, Miley says Paul insisted on driving to a bar in downtown Beaufort. GPS records pulled from the boat's device show the group tied up at the boat at the dock around 12:45 a.m. Investigators say Paul and Connor went to a waterfront bar and ordered 2 rounds of shots. Connor later testified he used a fake ID to get in and said Paul used his brother Buster's. Surveillance video captures the two while the rest of the group remained outside waiting for them to return. By this point, Paul was allegedly intoxicated and acting rash, according to law enforcement interviews with some of the other passengers. As Anthony and Mallory made their way back to the boat, a tender moment is captured by the surveillance cameras from the dock. This is the one last image of Mallory alive. Around 1:15 a.m., another camera angle captured the group boarding the boat and taking off. According to Miley, some of the group started arguing with Paul after she says he started driving in circles and acting drunk. Miley told investigators Anthony asked Paul to let him out nearby dock, but Paul refused. Morgan would later testify that Paul kept leaving the wheel to fight with her, and she said that Mallory was scared. Investigators would later note on board Garmin PSG showed the speed of the boat increased. At about 2:20 a.m., the boat crashed into the Archers Creek Bridge. Mallory was ejected from the boat into the dark water. Connor called 911 and begged for help. First responders immediately began searching for Mallory. When Beaufort County Department, Stephen Domino was one of the first responders to arrive. His dashcam video captured the scene. He told, quote, 48 hours, end quote, that when he arrived, he found Anthony pictured distressed and pacing. He says he managed to calm Anthony down and asked him to sit down in his patrol car. When Paul Murdaugh walked up from the boat, Domino says Anthony grew agitated. Quote, he actually tried to rush into me to get to Paul, end quote. Domino said, quote, because I guess he saw him smiling, ... and it was just setting him off, end quote. Anthony told Domino he saw Paul driving the boat right before the crash. The passengers were transported to a hospital, except for Mallory, boyfriend Anthony, who wanted to stay behind. Connor was treated for a broken jaw and Morgan's hand was badly injured. According to hospital staff, Paul was uncooperative. Medical staff drew Paul's blood several hours after the crash. His blood alcohol content, BAC, was .24, 3 times over the legal limit. Hospital staff also told investigators that they would observe Paul's father, Alex Murdaugh, for going from room to room, attempting to speak with the other survivors. A security guard also reported that he overheard him on the phone saying, she's gone, don't worry. Investigators and volunteers using rescue boats, divers, and helicopters spent 8 days searching for Mallory Beach. On March 3, 2019, 2 volunteers found Mallory's body about 5 miles down the river from the crash scene. A month after the boat crash, Mallory's family filed a wrongful death suit against members of the Murdaugh family, allowing them to dispose of the survivors. On April 18, 2019, on what would have been Mallory's 20th birthday, Paul Murdaugh was indicted and charged with 3 felony counts of boating under the influence, including causing the death of Mallory Beach and seriously injuring 2 other passengers. Paul pleaded not guilty to all the charges and was out on bond awaiting trial. Paul pictured left with his family would never have had this day in court. On June 7, 2021, Paul was murdered along with his mother Maggie at one of the Murdaugh properties. Alex Murdaugh told 911 he had returned and found that they'd both been shot dead. Alex Murdaugh was charged with the murders of his wife's son on July 15, 2022. Mallory Beach's aunt, Lynn Rivas, said Mallory's family believes that Paul Murdaugh was driving the boat at the time of the accident. Quote, with Paul not being there now, I don't think my niece Mallory would get justice, end quote. Lynn said because, end quote, quote, with both of them being deceased, it just ended. The case ended. All I ever wanted was for him to get to stand and say, I'm sorry. That's all I ever wanted to hear, end quote. Many people wondered if Paul Murdaugh's murder somehow could be connected to the boating accident. Was Alex Murdaugh involved? The investigating agency, South Carolina Law Enforcement Division, has not named any suspects. An attorney for Alex Murdaugh has said Alex is a person of interest. Okay, that was episode 4 of Right or Wrong, where we went over Mallory's disappearance and murder, essentially her falling off the boat led to her death. And now we're going to do a Nicole segment, shout out to my mom, where we go back in time and find out where we could have changed the consequences or the end result. So when Mallory first got on the boat, she knew that there was alcohol on the boat. She knew that she was with her friends. She knew that the Murdaugh boy was potentially dangerous, but she felt safe enough to go because she was with her boyfriend, all of her little friends, so it's understandable. Another point was when he was getting too drunk and went to the bar and got 2 more extra shots. Easily could have stayed there and called her mom, even though she was out past curfew, or she could have just gone home at the correct curfew time. Again, never will I ever blame the victim. It's never their fault. This was the worst thing that could ever happen, but there it is. Next episode, number 5, is a mystery. Come back and find out who's next. Bye!